That's good.
Yes. MySQL will not function without the RDBMS. But I'd like you to, I hope, did we all get this question? I'd like you to ask the question again. So I think it's an important question.
Okay. I was saying if you can liken the RDBMS to the house, then MySQL to the parlor, the Oracle to the room, just like that.
Okay.
So I'm saying like if without the RDBMS, MySQL cannot function because it's the basis of which the performance is enhanced and all that. So I'm asking if it's right.
Okay. Okay. Hope we all understand this question.
If I understand, okay, I think I understand what he's saying. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, please correct me if I'm wrong. So what he's saying right now is that my SQL, okay, has
it's a DBMS. It's an example of a DBMS. Yes.
Okay, no, if I let me understand. I say
Okay,
he was talking about RDBMS.
RDBMS, yes.
And one of the ingredients that will make RDBMS to function is my SQL or SQL.
No, MySQL is an example of RDBMS. Just like what do I use to give this example now? Okay, just like, for example, Toyota Camry is an example of, okay, Toyota as a brand is an example of a car.
Yes.
Toyota, any Toyota you find is a car. Okay?
Yes.
So if somebody will say, okay, give an example of a car, and say Toyota Camry. Okay? So an example of RDBMS is MySQL. Another example is Oracle. Another example is SQL Server. Okay, all these ones listed, they are all RDBMSes. MS SQL Server, IBM DB2, Oracle, these are all.
Okay, so I get it now. What I was asking is, are all these embedded in RDBMS or they are just examples?
These are examples. All these are examples of RDBMS. So so you have to choose which one an organization will need to choose which one to use. Some organizations use Oracle, some use MySQL, some use Microsoft Access, right? But all of them use SQL language. Whether you are using SQL Server, IBM, DB2, Oracle, MySQL, they all use this structured query language.
Okay.
You understand? Yes. Okay. Yeah, but I thought the question you were asking is if MySQL, if your DBMS, within the DBMS you have a table. You said if the DBMS is like a house, then the rooms are like what do you call it again?
Okay.
Yeah, I like that illustration you did. Okay.
Okay, sir. I was saying if the RDBMS is the house, then MySQL the parlor, the Oracle is the one of the room.
Okay.
Maybe the IBM is the kitchen, just like that. That was what I was asking.
Okay. So it's clear now that these are just examples of RDBMS. They are just examples of RDBMS.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So, but you can't learn all of them. There are so many. There are very, very many. Okay. So usually what we do is we choose a very popular one to use to learn. Okay. Once you know that one, migrating to another one is usually easy because SQL, there's, you saw it just now that SQL became is a standard language. So whether you are doing SQL in Oracle or MySQL or SQL Server, they are usually similar in a way, okay, with very slight differences. With slight differences. Why? Because they are standard. Okay, you can see what we saw here now. SQL became a standard of the ANSI. This ANSI, they regulate the standards of in the world of IT. Okay, and also the International Organization for Standardization since 1980 something. So there's the standard SQL which all of them conform to, whether it's Oracle, MySQL, all of them, they conform to that standard. Okay, so that makes it easy. Once you have learned SQL using one particular RODBMS, migrating to another RODBMS is usually not difficult. Okay. Okay, so that's it. Let's move on. The data in RODBMS is stored in data objects called tables. Okay. I've explained this earlier, that the data in the RDBMS is stored in tables. Okay. So now, I said it's very important to understand the relationship between a database and a table. A database contains tables. A database is like a container. Okay. So if you have a database, that database can contain multiple tables. Okay. Usually a table will have, just like in Excel, when you are working with Excel, if you create a workbook, within the workbook, you can have multiple worksheets, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. In the same way, if you create a database using an RODBMS, within that database, you can have multiple tables. Each table contains some data. Okay. So, and each table is organized into rows and columns. Every table is broken up into smaller entities called fields or columns. Fields are columns. The fields in the customer table consist of customer ID, customer name, contact name, and so on. Please, 1 minute. Anyway, it's very easy to understand the nature of tables because a table is organized just like something like Excel sheets, because it has rows and columns, just like Excel has rows and columns. Okay. Yeah, but the difference is that the table is more sophisticated. It's more sophisticated. The table is more sophisticated than the okay. The table is more sophisticated. Okay. It's more sophisticated than an Excel sheet. Much more sophisticated. How? Because within the table, In fact, there's a lot to tables than Excel sheets. For example, the fields within a table. For example, you have a customers table that may have columns like customer ID, customer name, contact name, address, city, postal code, and so forth. You know, now each of these fields, you have to define the properties, the characteristics of each of them. For example, you have to define the data type. Is it numeric? Can it take decimal points? Is it character? Is it dates? You have to specify exactly what type of data goes into that column when you are creating the table. Okay. So a field, I said a field is also called what? Called a column, right? A field is a column in a table that is designed to maintain specific information about every record in the table. A record is simply a row in the table. A field is a column in the table. So a field is also called a column. Rather, a column is also called a field. A row is also called a record. Okay.
Hold it, sir. Excuse me, sir.
Okay.
A field column in a table. I'm
Yes.
looking for that place where we talk about row.
Yes. A field is a column in a table. That's a field. A field could be store name, first name, address, and those are fields.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yes. Then a row. We know row now, like row in Excel. That's the horizontal. A row is another term used to describe a row is record.
Okay,
When you use
record.
the word record and row mean the same thing. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's database terminology, record.
So what you are saying right now is under this kind of database, a row, what we call row in Excel, is that the same way we will see it there?
Yes.
And what we call column in Excel, we also see it that way too.
Exactly, yes.
It's okay.
Yeah, you see it that way, but the difference, like I said, is that here it's more
sophisticated and
it's more sophisticated, it's more advanced
Excel
than Excel by far. Okay. Yeah, you know, DBMSes have they have certain advantages. Okay, for example, a DBMS, while an Excel sheet may hold maybe 1 million plus rows. Okay, just 1 million plus 1 point something million, for example. But when you come to a database, a real big database like Oracle or MySQL, you can be talking of billions of rows. Okay. And if you have, let's say, for example, you have just 20,000 rows of data in Excel. Like there's an Excel sheet I created. There's a template I designed, you know, at NIT. There's a template I designed for use, Excel template, because, you know, at the time I designed that, I actually wanted to write a program, a software for handling the operations, but I was so busy I could not at that time. So I decided to create an Excel template, you know, for temporary use for handling some certain data. By the time the data size had grown to It's just a few thousands or so. Whenever the sheet is opened, whenever you open that particular sheet, you have to wait. It takes a long time before it opens. Why? Because the rows have gotten to, let's just say maybe, I don't think it was up to 5,000. Okay. And then apart from the fact that it was much, that's like some thousands, some of the components, some of the cells were calculated cells. I hope you understand what I'm explaining. You know, I did some calculation. There are some calculations within the sheet. So it takes time for Excel to do all those calculations and display all those rows and open up the worksheet. So normally when they click it and they try to open it, sometimes you have to wait for sometimes almost 5 minutes or so before it will finally open up. Okay. Why? Because Excel generally is designed for simpler type of data operations. But when you now begin to work with databases, even if you have millions of rows and you want to fetch some particular rows, you can do it, just in a moment. Are you seeing the difference? Are you with me? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That does not mean that Excel is not good, that Excel is not useful. Excel is good for what it's meant for. Excel is for spreadsheet analysis, okay? Yes, it's good for analysis, for analyzing data, but if you need to store data, massive amount of data, then you begin to talk of DBMS, okay? And the way it is structured, the way the table is structured and everything, makes for much greater efficiency in handling data. Take note of my statement, in handling data, not in analyzing data. Okay? In handling it, like storing it, assessing it, those kind of things. Okay? So that is that. Now we proceed.
Yes.
All right. So the table fields, I said the temp field is another term for column. Record is another term for row. Table rows, also called records. A record, also called a row, is each individual entry that exists in a table. For example, if there are 91 records in a table called customer table, the record is a horizontal entity in a table. We already know that a row is an horizontal entity, okay? A column is a vertical entity in a table that contains all information associated with a specific field in a table, okay? So you may have a column called surname, maybe a student data, a student table, and have a column called surname. So what you have on that column right down, it will be the surnames of students. Okay. All right. So last time, in the very first class, I gave us this assignment. I said we should download and install MySQL. So I want to believe that most of us have done that. Okay, I think we have done, most of us have already done that. Okay, so now let's go ahead to take a look at the environments. What screen can you see now?
Okay.
Can you see my SQL window?
Yes. My SQL 8.0 command line clients.
Yes. So I don't know, this might be looking ugly to us. Well, it's ugly, but very useful. It's like a meal that is bitter, but very good for the body. Okay. So, well, when you are working with MySQL, especially as a database administrator, well, this is not a database administration course, but I think it is worthwhile to just have a little feel of what database administrators do. Okay, database administrators work in this type of environment a lot. Okay, this is the real shell. Okay, they call it the command line clients of MySQL. It's from here you connect to the database and do whatever you want to do in the database. Okay, how do we open up this? Let me share. Let me share my. Let me just share the desktop so you can see. Here's my desktop. Just a minute. Okay, believe you can see my desktop now. Let me close this and open it afresh. Are you seeing what I'm doing?
Yes.
Okay, so if I say MySQL, this one, MySQL 8.0 command line clients, if you click that, it shows you this command line clients. The password that you entered when you were installing MySQL, that's the password that you type here to access, to open up, to connect with database. Okay. That password is called the root password. The root user password. I'm sure you noticed that that's what it called it. Does anybody remember that? When you were installing, did it
Yes,
ask
sir.
root? It asks you to put in password for the root user. The root user. What is root user? This root user is another way of saying the administrator, MySQL administrator. Okay. Administrator. Okay. Windows uses the term administrator for that kind of user. Okay. Linux usually use the terms the super user. Okay. So the root user has full privileges. Okay. He has the privilege, the power to do just anything. Okay. Because within the database, as far as database is concerned, there's what they call roles. There's what they call roles and privileges. Okay. They're what they call roles and privileges. Okay, the database administrator usually manages all these, the roles and privileges. For example, the database administrator is who he will try to define. He will define who has the who should access a particular table, who has the right to access the table, who has the right to update the table, who has the right to delete stuff like that. Okay, so not everybody can just connect to the database and do whatever he likes. There's control. How is it control done? Through privileges. For example, some people might be given the privilege of displaying the contents, looking at the content of a table, but they may not be allowed to delete anything from the table. They may not be allowed to change anything on the table. Okay, so those are privileges. Now, the root user has full privilege, full power. Understand? So the root password is usually not given to just anybody. The root password is usually known only to the person that is authorized to manage the database, which is the database administrator. Okay, so when you were asked to put root password, that's very, very important. It's telling you that put the super user password, administrator's password. And if it's a database that is going to be used for something serious, maybe in an organization, that password is not a password that we throw around. Because anybody that has the root password can enter into the system and do just anything. So that is that. But as a data analyst, what I'm telling you now may not actually concern you because it's the administrator that manages this kind of things that I'm telling you. Okay. Yeah. So.
Okay, sir. That brings me to the question I want to ask.
Yes. Yes, your question, please.
Hello, sir.
Yes, I'm hearing you. I can hear you.
So,
please go ahead with the
you know,
question.
in Excel, let's say you've finished typing your work and you discover that you have errors somewhere, maybe when you started in the middle or in the beginning. You can just go back and just edit it. Let's say, for instance, you are inserting data. So after a long run, you discover that you made errors in some areas. Will you be able to go to that particular area and edit it, or you have to start all over again?
You can edit it, okay? But when you are walking through this place, like I told you, we are not going to spend much time here. But I just wanted you to have a feel of it. When you are using, now, if you are working from this environment, to do such editing, you can't just edit it right away. You will have to use what we call an update command, which we have not done, to do that editing. But that's if you are working from this shell, right? This environment, this console. But if you are using Workbench, remember Workbench. I asked you to install Workbench. If you are using MySQL Workbench, you can open it and edit it just like you edit Excel. Does that answer your question?
Can I say something in addition? Okay, so talking about the database, just like you said, that it has an administrator, a root, what do you call it, root or
root user.
A root administrator.
Root user, yes.
Root user. Okay.
Yes.
Now, usually, from what I understand, there are databases whereby you'll be granted read-only access for a specific function.
Yes.
And there are some they will grant you read and write access.
Thank you. Yes.
So when you have read and write access, it means you can input data into the database and store the data.
Yes.
if you make mistake,
yes,
in instances, because some of the databases are time-based.
yes,
So when your data is within the time limit that is permitted to be
yes,
operational for your access, you can still change this data.
yes,
But once
okay,
it's specific, based on the sensitivity of your data,
yes,
okay? Because you extend beyond that time, you may not be able to change data again. Then you may have to go to another upper level, or an administrator,
somebody with a higher privilege,
higher
yes,
privilege.
to do
Exactly.
that. Yes, that's good. Yes,
So
thank you.
that's
Thank you. Yes, thanks. Thanks for that contribution. Okay, so some databases are designed to function like that. Okay, but let's not bother about this. The thing is, the truth is, when you are using a tool, a GUI tool to manage your database, it's easy like that, just like you are working with Excel. Okay, which is what we are going to be doing anyway, so don't bother. Okay, maybe from next class, I don't know. We won't spend much time in this black screen. So all those things can be done. But when you talk of SQL, when you are talking of, don't forget the course model we are doing is what? SQL. We are doing SQL, right? So if we are doing SQL,
yes.
what we are learning here is commands. Is commands. So if all we are able to do is just type something, just edit like you do in Excel, which means you really have not known SQL. Because there are some environments you will work, you find yourself, you will not have the opportunity of just browsing through the data to edit something. Okay? Because for security reasons, they may not even allow you to see the whole data like that. For security reasons. You understand? They may not open up the full data to you so that you can see it. You go there, you edit. Once you type a command and you press enter, it's gone into the database. For you to change anything, you have to use another SQL command again. Update command, update so and so, set so and so variable to so and so to change that thing. Everything is command. That's what SQL is about. But
It's okay.
we shouldn't allow that bother us, because this is what we are here to learn. We are going to be learning the commands one by one. Understand? I will understand everything. Don't bother. We are going to understand it. We'll learn it command by command by command. Okay? Yeah. Any question, please?
Well, you say we shouldn't bother, but quickly.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Ask your question, please.
Yes. True. Is it true that you can link a database to an Excel sheet?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Because in some instances, you may not be able to access the database directly,
yes,
or you'll be able to access an Excel sheet from which those information will be translated to the database.
to the database, yes.
If you must change anything, you have to log into the Excel sheet again and change, then translate to the database.
Exactly. You can see in Excel, there's something we call there's a topic, Excel Power Pivot. Power Pivot in Excel. Okay. So when we do this topic, by the time we do this topic, you will see that in doing power pivots, you can connect Excel to a database and fetch information from the database into Excel. Okay.
Fetch information database to Excel or from Excel to database?
No, from the database to Excel.
Okay, yes, of course. We can fetch it, yes. Very possible.
Yes, you can do that.
Very possible.
Okay.
Of course.
All right. So, like I said, we are doing SQL. So let's begin learning the commands. I mean, this is commands, okay? This is programming now. You know, all the while we've talked about Excel, we've talked about financial statistics, okay? Those don't really involve programming. This one is programming. In programming, you learn how to write statements, okay? You learn how to write statements.
That's what SQL is.
Okay, so yes, it's about commands, right? So what are we going to learn? What are we going to learn how to do? Let me. We are not going to be very. We'll just take it. You know, I think I've observed that we have to really take it one by one and relatively slowly. Okay. Anyway, so we need to see how to create a database. Okay, that's where it all starts from. Then we'll see how to create a table inside the database. Then we'll see how to insert